The Pledge of Allegiance, please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Celebrating success. It's always a fun way to start.
Yeah, Scott? Tommy's going to do it. Very good.
Go ahead.
So I do it from here. Yeah, this is a
Make you do it.
This is in recognition of Scott Garrison. I want to add before I read this that Scott is tremendous in his support of all the departments, but particularly mine, because he knows the importance of reacting to our needs. But recently, BV Barn Grill's hot water heater was down on a Sunday morning, and it appeared that the restaurant was going to have to close that day. As a last resort, Tommy contacted Scott, that's me, who came out on his day off and discovered that it wasn't the heater itself but the wiring. He quickly fixed it, and BV was able to stay open and did not miss out on $5,000 in sales that day. Thank you for all you do. I offer him a lot of hamburgers. He never takes me up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right.
That's great. Okay, next order of business is the approval of the minutes. First up is June 24th, the regular session board meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
I move.
Jan Sims makes the motion. A second?
I'll second.
JB second. Any additions, corrections, or questions? All in favor, signify by raising your hand or saying aye. It's unanimous. Anybody against? None against. Next order of business, the July 15 board work session meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes? JB, a second. Mike, any additions, questions? A motion, okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
All approved? Next up, the Joint Advisory Committee reports.
I have a summary report from each of the board chairs. First up is the Lakes Committee. Loch Lomond will be drawn down 4 feet this coming winter. The drawdown will begin on November 24th, weather permitting, and will conclude March 1st, weather permitting. We've already been told that a lot of construction is going to take place, so if you're planning on doing work, find your contractor soon. Rangers are on the second round of contacting people with boats on the lake who have not yet registered. This has been a successful effort on their part. Bids the 3 bids have been received for the Lake Ann repairs. This is for the engineers. We'll be reviewing those very soon. Numerous residents were in attendance to speak about lake use, rules violations, issues with no wake zones, and a number of other interesting issues. We encourage people to watch the video from the meeting to get a full understanding of what their concerns were. Ranger Bob Walker shared about an app that the fire department uses and how they coordinate between fire and the lake rangers for rescue operations. And annual training of committee members was conducted by myself. Next up, the Recreation Committee. Tanya Creek remains high usage and seeing some stress. Several maintenance matters were noted in the committee members' full report. Lake Ann, several issues in full report for maintenance, notably the water spigot in the picnic area was not working, and some graffiti in on some of the picnic tables. Since this report was issued, the spigot has been fixed, and the graffiti will be addressed very soon. Metville Complex, some maintenance needs were noted, 2 dead trees. The playground is in need of some fresh mulch and potentially a bench. New business, annual training by myself again. And we kicked off the annual budget solicitation for recommendations from the committees, and those recommendations are due from each of the committees by August 31st. Lake Avalon, we continue to have problems with the septic system, with the sewer system. We've had a number of different pumps installed, and we're hopefully that will be resolved soon. We do have porta potties out there for property owners to use. And lastly is the golf committee. Year-to-date rounds at the end of June were 71,386. Rounds for the month were down, partially due to weather, and partially we're seeing more people, more of our residents are traveling, so the rounds are going down a little bit. So between the weather and travel, rounds are down a little bit. Range buckets, year-to-date, 4,500 over last year, so we still have a lot of people practicing. Scottsdale Front 9 will be closed, is currently closed and will reopen October 1st. If you haven't watched the video, it's available. It's a short one, and actually we're using that format. We've already used it 2 more times. We like that brief format. It gives a quick bit of information, and it seems to be well received. I think the first video was watched over 1,200 times. Really? So that wasn't just a kind of a good idea, it was our outstanding idea. Various sod work on at the country club due to winter kill, so that's going along very nicely. We are by and large back to normal with 8-minute tee times and 2 golfers per cart. Junior golf, Highlands will host the AJGA in September. We're looking forward to that. And the July camps were full and a huge success. Committee members unanimously recommended not to move forward with player managers for the 22 season. They elected their chairs. It will be Jason Lloyd will return as chair, Ruth Hatcher will be vice chair, and Mark Deal will be secretary. And that's everything from the golf committee.
Thank you. Next up, we have the financial reports. Stacy will handle that.
Jerry, if you could mute your microphone.
Can you hear me? Okay. So we're a little different this month in that we're going to kick it off talking about the Gear Garden. And these are actually, the numbers you're going to see with the Gear Garden are actually July numbers because we didn't open until July and we're really doing financials for June, so don't get confused. But I think it's relevant to talk about kind of where we're at and how it started. And in order to do that, I have Tommy here, who's actually going to talk about the Gear Garden, the success he's had, where he's at in his revenue, what his promotions are going to be looking like, and the capital request that Tom will talk about later on in the board meeting.
Yes, we opened the Gear Garden the weekend of Independence Day. We actually opened that Friday. Since then, if you count tomorrow, yesterday, we've broken $8,000 in sales. So we're on pace to compete with Highlands Pub and Patio with much less overhead. I'm sorry, I can't talk that fast. All right. After Sunday, our total revenue was at $7,833. Looking ahead, we anticipate that it will be somewhere between $11,000 and $12,000, with approximately 50% falling to the bottom line for EBITDA. So we're really excited about that. We keep adding I'm sorry, allergies. We keep adding new promos and items to our menu list. We had a promo this past weekend, which was for our new Pioneer member cups. We sold out of those. There were approximately 70 of them. We've got more coming. We're adding peanuts and lifestyle energy nutrition bars this weekend. And then we have a growler promotion coming up where we have a 64-ounce growler with both logos of Gear Garden and our Trailhead Lager. So we're really excited about that. We were budgeted for $9,653, which is below that $10,000 threshold. We were thrown a couple of curveballs. One was that we had to add sewer that we were not anticipating. The other was at the time we were building it, we were having some excessive vandalism down there, so we thought it would be prudent and necessary to add some security items there, which includes cameras and alarms and everything else. Neither one of those were anticipated or budgeted, but we came out with a total cost a little over $16,000 or $16,500. Looking at our current performance and moving forward, I'm very confident that we will cover the total cost of the investment this year. So moving forward past that, it will be all profit. So we don't have to really work on a ROI like we do on many of our larger items. And so I feel pretty good about this. Again, a lot of it was anticipated, but you get to that point where you can't just stop because you spent too much money to stop, and you've got to move forward. So I apologize that I did not anticipate some of those items, but as you can see, I think you will understand they were necessary, and I think our sales and bottom line performance will overcome that pretty easily.
Good job.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Tommy, just a comment, it just looks wonderful out there. I think it's very attractive to guests, whether they're buying something or not. That whole area with the chair and the benches and the way it looks, really looks like an improvement.
It was a wonderful collaborative effort with working with Recreation, working with Oz Trails, and it's really just worked out really well. And we've gotten a lot of compliments. We ran through that, but there's been a lot of Facebook chatter, and everybody's really, really happy with what we're doing and very excited to be out there. In fact, I was out there today when we opened, and people were in line waiting for us to open. So that was pretty cool.
Good deal.
When you go through your board packet this month, you'll see that we reordered it a little bit. It used to be that we would have the initial minutes from the board and then the committee minutes and on all the financials, and kind of hidden in the back were all the important memos and so forth. We switched it up. The memos are much earlier and easier to find, and then the financials are towards the end. So just want to make everybody aware. We just felt that it would be a little bit easier to find the information by reordering it. So.
All right, let's talk about financials. So Tom took the clicker away from me, so we'll see if he does better. So for June, overall consolidated results, another great month. If you look at the top line, that's June. So June revenue, we were $218,000 better than budget for revenue. Gross profit was $178,000 better. When you look at expenses, we did go over our budget for expenses by $209,000, and EBITDA, we kind of broke even, but it was over by about $31,000. So really the revenue and the expenses kind of offset each other's way I looked at it. But, remember that we were talking the whole first part of the year, and you'll see on some of the graphs coming up that we totally anticipated our expenses will run over in the June, July, August timeframe, likely because we had a lot of catch up to do the first part of the year. So you're seeing some of that now. As far as year-to-date, outstanding numbers. So year-to-date, we're running at a variance of $1.2 million for revenue. Who would have ever dreamed of that? Gross profit, $1 million. Expenses, we're right at $326,000 better than budget. So again, that gap's narrowing. And then EBITDA, $1.33 million. I mean, it's just an outstanding year so far. So, we're at the 6-month mark. We're halfway through the year. So it just, it's kind of good to level set and see where we're at. So now we'll talk about the POA. So the POA itself had a great month. Revenue ended up better than budget by $229,000. Expenses were worse by $171,000, and EBITDA was better by $8. So again, your revenue and expenses kind of washed. Year-to-date, revenue was better than budget by 1.1. Expenses were better by $298,000, and EBITDA was better by 1.2. Food and beverage, outstanding month. Their revenue came in $126,000 better than budget. It's unbelievable how the restaurants are doing. Highlands revenue was over by almost $11,000. Lake Point was over by $44,000, and the BV Bar and Grill was over by $65,000. So just an outstanding revenue month for our restaurants. Cost of goods was over budget by $40,000, which you would expect. You know, more food prices or more food you have to buy and more labor and that kind of thing when your revenue is so high. And then expenses were over budget by $49,000, with a lot of that being in the salaries and benefits because of the increase in revenue. Still having great margins, everything's where it should be, and food and beverage has just had an outstanding month. June, so overall, other areas that were better than budget, transfer fees were up $78,000. Assessments were up $22,000. Activity cards are up $16,000, so they've kind of caught up now. Facility fees, now that the recreation facilities are open, they're over budget by $15,000, and past due collections are over budget by $13,000. A few areas that were worse than budget, golf operations are down $35,000, assuming a lot of that was due to the weather, and then people are traveling more and getting out more now. Lot sales were down by $17,000, and again, a lot of that was timing. And then boat registrations are down by $6,000. And again, that was timing as well. So, I mean, just a great month overall. POA revenue, the bottom chart just kind of shows you where our revenue's been doing. You can see where last year was. You can see where we budgeted higher than last year. Thinking last year was a great month due to COVID and everything. People were here golfing, and we've just really blown the budget out of the water so far. I don't even know how we could have anticipated that, to be honest. POA expenses, again, you can see the first part of the year, our expenses were low. We warned everybody that the expenses were going to go up. We had back orders, we had timing, we had open positions, all of that's starting to come through. And now you can see the second half, the last 3 months, we've exceeded that, our budget. So again, that's kind of leveling out. EBITDA. So let's talk a little bit about EBITDA. We're 6 months in. Year to date, we're at $1.2 million better than budget. And I can't say that that's one department that's done that. I mean, so you've got Scottsdale Golf is better than budget by $63,000. Kingsdale Golf is better than budget by $35,000. The RV Park, better than budget by $94,000. The Marina is better by $20,000. Marketing, $49,000. General income, $463,000. Membership services, $17,000. Tennis, $35,000. Facility maintenance, who's not even a profit generating, they've saved enough that they've got a positive EBITDA variance of $32,000. The lots is $79,000. And then, of course, Lake Point and Bar and Grill, we've talked about both of those, but Lake Point is at a $70,000 variance. They are at a positive $9,000 versus a $60,000 loss is what we budgeted. And BB Bar and Grill's at $60,000 versus a $727 budget. So just an outstanding first 6 months. Not a lot to share on the expenses. Worse than budget, we have some credit card fees. Elections, that's because of the way I budgeted. Taxes and permits, $15,000. And then better than budget, bad debt. Advertising, we have some training and travel. Utilities and maintenance and repairs. But if you look at the line, and the reason I did it this way this month, is you can kind of see it's exactly how it was expected according to budget, and it's right in line with last year. So no real big surprises there. The salary numbers are up in the right-hand corner because it just skewed the picture so bad, but they're right in line as well. So no big surprises on the expense side either. So we're halfway there. So people are asking, okay, we're halfway there. How do we compare to budget for the year? You know, are we back-end loaded? Are we front-end loaded? What's it look like? So if you look at our budget for the year, for the POA, our revenue, we're at 57% of our budget for the year. So right where you kind of expect, a little higher than halfway. Cost of goods, outstanding. We're only at 37% of our budget for the year. Expenses are at 47%, so just right about there. And EBITDA is just out the window because of revenue. And we're already at 100+% of our budget for the year. So right on track with where we should be, EBITDA, I mean, better than where we should be, but no concerns coming into the second half of the year if everything keeps moving like it is. So the water department. So I want to point out first, the picture came from Charlie. That was one of our capital projects. for this year, and it's done. And so that's our exterior renovation of the Avondale Tower. All right, so water. Water's kind of settling in. They're still doing good year to date. We're a little bit down in June. They were worse than budget by $12,000. Expenses were worse by $38,000, and EBITDA was worse than budget by $39,000. Year to date, though, they're still holding strong. So revenue is better than budget by $79,000. Expenses are better than budget by $28,000, and our EBITDA is better than budget by $94,000. Revenue, talking with Charlie, he said the water consumption for June was lagging a little bit due to all the rain, which has lightened up some of the irrigation consumption. And so water was worse than budget by $29,000, and water consumption year to date is better than budget by $36,000, but he's kind of making up for it in the capital buy-in fees for the new homes, and that's better than budget by $23,000 for June, and year to date $85,000. And he had 41 new water services in June. So kind of the mid-year analysis for them, I didn't do the hourglasses because that took too long, but thanks. Revenue, they're at 56% of their annual, 48% of cost of goods, 46% of expenses, and 52% of their EBITDA. So again, they're pretty much right where you expect them to be for 6 months in. Water revenue, the chart at the bottom, again, it just kind of depicts what we talked about. But you can see that their 2021 number is a little bit below 2020. I think that a lot of that's due to the consumption. Everybody was home. People are getting out now. So, that's kind of what they expected. And then the water EBITDA for the month, again, is kind of trending where it has trended in the past.
Yeah, it feels like because of fortunate weather for rain, people didn't have to water their yards as much.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're seeing that in the water department. And then expenses, again, not a lot of call outs here. You can see it's trending. The biggest expenses are at the left, the smallest are at the right. And it's, it's trending with budget, it's trending with last year. Worse than budget, we had supplies of 32, credit cards of 7, and equipment and tools of 6. And better than budget, we have salaries at 38, maintenance and repairs at 28, some training and travel of 8, postage of 5, and bad debt of 1.
Do you think that we'll have those same type of expense line items next year, like travel and training and things like that? Are we learning certain things that we're going to be cutting from the future, or are we really missing out from some of our line items that we're better than?
So I think like training and travel, we budgeted for a lot of that this year, and there were conferences that got canceled because of COVID, but I still believe like training is important for people to go to, so I think you'll see some of those expenses come back into the budget next year as an example. I think this year has been a little bit different just because of the COVID last year, and we're gonna have to kind of level set again when we do budgets this year. I don't know if that answers your question. As far as having the accounts, absolutely, we'll still have all those accounts when we move into the new system. So just a few consolidated slides that we'll share. So EBITDA overall, so this is by department. So again, you can kind of just get a picture of the departments and what they're doing. Starting out with general income, recreation, food and beverage are your top 3, and it just kind of goes down from there. Technology, lakes and parks, clubhouses, central admin are at 0 or below budget, but all the other ones are significantly higher than their budget. And most of that's being driven by the revenue side of the house. So somebody had asked me last month to give a capital update, and so I wanted to put that in here. So this is kind of a mid-year capital projects update. The box at the left, you can see those are the projects we've closed that we were budgeted for in 2021. I won't go through the whole list, the floor heat pumps, the root pruner, so on and so forth. Projects that we expect to close in July, it is busy right now. Sand dresser, the dogwood T-stones, the pool improvements, the water tower refurbished, the water department trailers, park mowers, pickleball courts, and pickup trucks. And then, of course, we have the gear garden that's a pending project for the vote tonight. And then each of the areas, we got an update. So in recreation, the rental boat that they purchased that was used, it's purchased and being worked on now. Tiny cabins are expected to be delivered in October. And the pickleball court, they've started the pre-construction meetings on those as well. Food and beverage has the painting of the exterior of the country club, and that's scheduled for August. Lakes and parks, they're paving the Brittany Dam, and that's starting in July, and 2 pickup trucks that are on order pending delivery. Golf maintenance and golf ops. Pump house rebuild, that's starting in October. The creek bank and bridge is bidding it in July. The red tee boxes, they may be delayed till next year, we're not sure. and the Metfield parking lot is weather delayed right now. In the water area, they have Highway 340 water line, which is weather delayed. Service trucks are ordered and pending delivery. The dump truck is waiting on registration. The water line replacement's ongoing, and the tank power event plans have been submitted. And then in the other is just the North Star software, and that's on track as planned. So that's kind of a high-level update as to what's going on the Capitol. So cash, switching gears on you. So water, we're sitting at $3.4 million in unrestricted. The POA, we're at $1.9 million. The water restricted is the bond money, and that's $1 million. The prepaid assessments, we have $1.5 million, and the POA reserves. So a couple things I want to talk about here. One, the POA reserves, the $315,000, if you remember, we funded that last month to the full funding based on the calculation for the year. We will reevaluate that. I do look at that every month as far as the number of lots that are paying, and we'll have small adjustments as we go just to make sure we're where we need to be at year end. And I think Mike had asked me last month about the cash and what I recommended with cash. And one of the things that we're working on was with the bank right now, we have the other $2 million that's coming in July. And so I'm working with Regions right now, and we're working on a sweep for the insurance stuff that we had talked about with the audit committee, to where the money comes out of the account each night and is invested in a zero risk investment so that we don't have that insurance issue. So that's going to be fixed, and we won't have a concern there go forward. I actually meet with them next week to hopefully finalize that. And then back to Mike's question. So I thought a lot about that over the month. And although I know Tom has a whole slew of projects that he wants to do next year, I know his team is completely tapped right now. So if I said do any projects right now, they'd probably all strangle me. So I guess being a conservative accountant, I think the best thing that you should do is put the money into the reserve, let it sit there, go through the budget process this year, and Tom and his team will be prioritizing those projects, and I'm sure that they will figure out what projects to do first, and then deplete that as those projects come up. But from an accounting standpoint, I think it should just be invested.
Now, I did notice one thing that I thought was on our balance sheet right now that I didn't see there, which is the consultation on the lake and spillway efforts and what costs those will be. And I don't know when and how that reserves is part of that plan.
So you're talking about the Lake Ann work that's being done. Mm-hmm. That's not a capital project at this point that I'm aware of.
So the majority of the expense that we've put out so far was paid last year. Now we're getting additional bids on 3 engineers, and then once we select the engineering company that will do the work, then we'll go out to bid. After the engineers do their work, we'll go out to bid, we'll have that expense, and then we'll know at that point. So we're still a ways away on that one, so it's not factored in any, it's not here at all. We'll have to determine where it comes from, whether
Tom, would you agree that that's probably our largest outlying predicted expense, though?
Yeah, I would, and I would even change the word to unpredicted, because we didn't necessarily anticipate it was coming and that it was going to be this as large as we are concerned it would be. It's hard to say at this point until we get all the expenses in as to how much we're talking about. But we're really committed to making a long-term fix there and not do a Band-Aid.
Tom, do you have a ballpark estimate of how many dollars we're talking about?
When we did that tour at Lake Ann, one of the things that Mike and I kind of stayed away from was trying to do an estimate, because I don't want to say a number, because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a contractor, and I don't want to get it wrong. But we're looking at in the hundreds of thousands range, so a couple $100,000 in that neighborhood. But we'll know more once we get the information from the engineering company and the contractors and so forth. So it's going to be a large ticket item, but as I indicated, we have to fix that and fix it right. We have that sinkhole that needs to be fixed, and we got to make sure that the sinkhole doesn't get worse and make its way towards the dam, which would be really bad.
What about the area past the bridge where the water had washed out the soil?
Yeah, and that's to a certain extent unrelated to the spillway. It's in the same area, and we're still working on a solution for that.
Okay.
I'll just have one closing statement about kind of the challenge to what would you do with some of this profit, or what would you do? And I appreciate the frugalness of putting it in the reserve, though, but I think by some of Tommy's example with the Gear Garden, some of the other efforts that Tom and Tommy have made in the entrepreneurial mindset, I don't want to lose the spirit of that when things are good, because I do think there's more opportunities for us to leverage that positive position now. And some of that may be through the ideation of the team members that spend the most time with the money.
And we're going to be bringing some thoughts to the board in the coming months. Tommy and I have been working on some expansion of services ideas. We're not ready yet. We don't have the numbers, but we've been working on it. But we do want to get through the season. This is the busy time. We want to get through the season, and we'll probably combine this into the 2022 budget. But you're correct. I mean, we need to continue to look at the expansion of services.
And I don't argue that. You just asked the wrong person. I'm an accountant. I'm conservative, and I am not creative. So to ask
I
me
just
to
say
come
that
up
because you
with something,
spend the most time with this stuff. You
I
may
can
have
tell
the
you the
secret
numbers,
lens.
but you're asking the wrong person to give you the ideas. So
Stacy, if you take just a minute on that chart, remind me about the 315 in reserves when you said fully funded.
okay, so when we did the 2020 plan, we agreed to take $1 for each paying property for improved properties only, and put it in a reserve each month for a rainy day fund, whatever we might need it for in the future. So we've had such a good year that I did the calculation based on the paying properties last month and extrapolated that out for the year and went ahead and put that money in the reserve. So that's what that is. Now, if we continue to have more paying properties, we will adjust that slightly as the year goes, but that's a pretty good representation of what it should be at the end of the year.
And it's a year-end commitment. Remember that our cash flow is not flat throughout. It goes up and down, and so we wanted to fully fund it because the fall is when we start going into our lean months, and so we don't want to have to make a contribution during a lean month. Let's get these are the heavy revenue months right now. Let's get it 100% paid off immediately. This and the water loan payment, both of those were commitments that were made in the budget and in the 2020 plan, and we wanted to make sure that those are fully funded before we go into the more challenging months, the cash poor months.
All right, so moving on. So here's just some activities, just to kind of give you an update of where we're at. Activity cards we sold year to date are 9,987, compared to last year is 9,683. Guest cards, you can see we're up 5951 compared to last year of 3,300. Property transfers, amazing, 46 year to date compared to 2354 last year. I don't know how legal has time to do anything but transfers. And prepaid assessments, we're sitting at 1.5 million. That's a reduction of $183,000 from last month, but it's an increase of $219,000 over last year. We have 12,738 lots currently that have a prepaid balance, and that's 166 more lots than what we had at this time last year. I should say lots, properties in combination. Boat registrations, 6,070 have been sold year to date, and 5,455 was last year. And for collections, 3,522 delinquent accounts for 1.78 million right now, compared to 4,691 last year. So everything's trending better than what it was last year.
If you take a look at the activity cards, if you remember a couple months ago, we were lagging by several hundred, and we started kicking in some promotions and so forth, and now we're over. So we're very pleased with that. Congratulations to our marketing team on making that happen.
Hey, Stacy, do some of these numbers have a kind of a fall off date that they usually fall off anyways? Like I'm thinking like boat registrations probably fall off in August, or guest card. Do some of these, as you say, like last year's numbers and our year-to-date numbers, when can we expect that to kind of come back down to earth?
So I think it depends on what it is, of course. And these are year-to-date numbers, so they're just going to continue to build. You'll just have smaller when you get into August, September, October timeframe. You know, a lot of people have bought their activity cards so they can use the pools and the beaches and that kind of stuff. But you'll have new people who will come into the properties, and so they're going to buy them in October, November, December so that they can use the discounts at the restaurants. So you will see the volume fall off in a lot of these areas, but you will continue to see an increase throughout the rest of the year, I believe. And here's the one pager. Same thing we share every month. It's just kind of a snapshot of the financials. The one thing we haven't talked about is the loan. And you'll see it's 2.586 right now is what the POA owes to water. We did make another $10,000 payment in June, and that's basically covers interest and just kind of chips away at it. I know you'll probably ask, well, why aren't we paying more than that for having such a great month? Back to Tom's comment, we don't know what the second half of the year is going to be like, and I don't want to get in a position where we pay a bunch back now and have to borrow a bunch in a few months. So I think my recommendation is that we wait till we get closer to the end of the year. If we're still have a lot of cash and we make a decision to make a large payment to water at that point, we can do it at the end of the year. So that's why I haven't done it. Questions?
Great.
Thank you, Stacy. The next item, last month's open forum comments, questions. Property owner Dunn thanked the board for putting in the additional pickleball courts at Branchwood and stated that he was in favor of adding 2 more courts at the same location. And as you just noticed, those courts are in the works. At this time, we're ready for open forum. We have no members signed up. Is there anybody in the room who would like to speak? Please come forward, state your name and the street that you live on.
Good evening. My name is Irene Silvius, 8 Cheriton Lane, and I own 5 lots within the city. And I did hear on Facebook that you were asking for input on what needed to happen with Burksdale West. And I figured I would do my part rather than just sitting at home and, and hoping that the right thing would happen. So there are a lot of things I don't know. I am not super familiar with the ins and outs of these questions, so I don't expect you to answer them. I just wanted to make sure that you had the questions. Those are the things I would love to know. What is the flooding risk of that area? Has that specific area flooded in the past, and has it been closed for flooding? Have any mitigation steps been taken? I think that mitigation is, and I come from a floodplain in Pennsylvania, and mitigation is not binary. So, you know, we don't have to do the whole thing. We can do as much as we can do this year, and then do some more next year and some more the year after that. And then what are the flood risk ramifications? Did it get better or worse because the dam at Lake Bella Vista is no longer there? So that's just some of my questions. The current plans, access, and ownerships. Who would own the property when whatever happens to it is completed? What kinds of restrictions would be on that property, depending on what the plan was, and what are the options for paying for the project? Who will, obviously that's the big question, who will pay for the project? So I have to tell you, when I moved here almost 2 years ago, the first time that realtor drove me up 71 Business and I saw that incredible golf course, I said, this is the good life. And I still feel that way. And I am 57 years old. My crotchety neighbor said nobody takes up golf after 50, so I took up golf, and so fun, so fun. So I did do some research on that, just a little bit, and you can see these. I won't drain this slide. 500,000 more golfers this year in 2020 than in 2019. An increase in women golfers. I'm one of those, right? of 8% in 2020 over 2019. And millennials, this is not stopping. Millennials increased their rounds played nationally by 13% in 2020 over 2019. And it's not a pandemic thing. This is the third year over year, that we've seen an increase in golfing, and it's super exciting. And so Bella Vista growth, I know that we've had, I mean, everybody knows that we have a huge increase in growth in new housing starts, which by my math, and I'm not great at public math, but 1,100 new households.
Oh,
Yeah, okay, I'm done.
thank you, Irene.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for the handout. You probably didn't get through it all, but we have the information, so thank you for bringing that. And thank you for coming in. Thank you. Tom, did you have any comment at this time?
We can wait until all comments are in, or that might be it.
Is there anybody else? Okay, that'll be the end of the open forum. Tom?
Okay, well, thanks for the great questions. A couple, I'm going to go through these pretty quick. David, could you hit that, the button? Here is Burksdale West, and I'm going to show the contours right now, and you can see that this line is about here. So if you haven't used contours before, the orange are 10-foot separations, and the white lines are 2-foot separations. And if you were to follow this white line, this is about, when it gets really bad flooding, it's this section here that tends to flood, not the upper section, definitely not back here and in that area. So that's one of the flooding issues, but approximately half of it does flood. Second of all, you asked about the dam. We had a dam study done in 2017. It's available on our website. By and large, the dam is insignificant towards flooding. You have 85.5 square miles of tributary that flow into Little Sugar Creek. The hydrologist that does this for a living called the dam a puddle. It's about 15 acres, 6 feet deep on average. It is insignificant towards that. Ownership of the land, what is being proposed to the board is a licensing agreement. It is not a transfer of ownership. It's a licensing agreement. There is a deed restriction on the land. It is the deed restriction limits the land to be used for recreational purposes only. One of the other questions was about public access. Anytime we deal with a grant from the Trailblazers, it requires access to the public. But then again, when it was a golf course, it was also open to the public. And this proposal is a no-cost proposal to the POA for construction and for 3 years. I think I covered a lot of your items, but thank you very much for putting it together in such an organized manner.
Thank you so much.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I'm available for additional questions or an email if I missed anything. I read over this very quickly, so if I missed anything, I apologize.
I so appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda, we have a septic system that has failed and a request to use common property to remedy the situation.
On page 10 of your board packet, you'll see about the septic system failure at 21 New Haven Lane. They would like to use common property to fully replace the septic system. The parcel is 0.27 acres. If you recall, back in March, the board modified policy 8.03, created a checklist and really did a comprehensive overhaul of this policy. And this is our first run through using that new policy. The owners have been very patient. One of the other things they've talked about is that they are going to limit or actually no removal of large trees, some removal of smaller trees. Also, the board received an email earlier this week, and we confirmed this is a family of 4. They have a septic permit for a home of 3 bedrooms, which is typically 6 adults, and they have 2 adults and 2 kids. There's no clear explanation as to why the septic system failed. This is a 2016 build. It's very unfortunate, but we did the individual that is designing the septic system. We went to him and asked information regarding the failure, and he was not able to point to anything specific other than soil morphology. For whatever reason, it is just not accepting it. Any questions regarding this?
Okay, first thing I need is a motion from the floor.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
We need a motion first. I think we need a motion first.
Okay.
Okay.
I make a motion authorizing the use of common property to build a new leach field for the owners at 21 New Haven Lane.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Jan Hagan seconds. Okay, now your comments. Sorry.
You know, I think that we should approve this because they've already gone through all the steps and whatnot based on the policy that we have now. But in looking at this and thinking about it, I live on a lake. We have a large lot, but I don't know that we have enough land for a second leach field. There's certainly no common property, and I don't think anybody wants it in the lake. Other people live on golf courses. There is no common property behind it. What do people like that do? And are we treating all the members equitably if we allow some to put their field onto common property and other people do not have any common property as? So I don't know if somebody like myself, if we have a problem, if we have to go with the $25,000 system and totally change our septic system, I don't know.
Likely.
You know, but it's something that we may want to talk about in the future that we didn't even consider when we changed this policy.
Well, we know that a majority of the legacy build of the village is coming up on some of those time ranges where these systems will be failing and failing at a more regular rate. I agree. I don't know how we can be satisfying that other side of the coin that you speak of, who doesn't have the luxury of a larger piece of common property. I think that's part of the inherent risk of building in a mountain town. I don't know if we'll be able to solve for those situations with a decree or any type of language like that, but there is going to be an inherent risk that you must take when you choose to live in an area that doesn't have sewer. And sadly, I don't know if we're going to change the realtors and the communication standards, but yes, I think we should always be better at communicating about septic health and what it can do to make sure that we take care of our water quality and our sewage and our waste. That seems to be a byproduct of people, literally and figuratively, of what they think about. But it's just a given. Don't just flush the toilet. And we have to be more proactive with it, and it's starting to show up again and again and again. So,
I want to remind everybody that in 2016, the health department, they didn't change their policies, but they changed the administration of their policies. And so they effectively went from a 1/4 acre lot to a 1/3 of an acre lot required to build a 2/3 bedroom home with a septic system. So as Mike has indicated, we have a lot of smaller 1/4 acre lots out there that might run into problems in the future. Going forward, it should get better because now it's a 1/3 of an acre, and this home was built before those changes were put into effect.
I know the city's working on this too. They're if you read the last article in the newspaper, it's been ongoing, and they've been talking about that for a long time because some of the builders that just came in and built, and there were no requirements to do anything in particular. So it's not just the POA, it's the city, it's Bella Vista.
Those are all good points. It's something that I'm sure that we will be faced with at some point. And, you know, to hope that we can be fair and equitable with all property owners be a little difficult. And at some point, we're gonna face some tough decisions, but it's something that we do need to talk about. And, you know, we'd like to think that we would be able to foresee all instances, but we probably won't. So we do have to be aware of it. Are there any comments on this request?
I just have one.
Tia.
Hey guys, just wanted to say that I really appreciate this homeowner. I feel for them and what they're going through. It's such a new build, and absolutely in support of helping them. The ones who can help, let's do it. They followed the process and it was great.
Yeah, the new process has worked, and it's a lengthy process. So with that, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the motion for a variance, signify.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Burksdale West Trail and Trailhead proposal.
I have a short presentation on this. I was asked to provide some additional information. So first of all, I just wanted to give a real quick recap on this for anybody that has not viewed this previously. If they want a little bit more in depth, they can watch one of the previous board meetings. But the proposal would be for a tunnel, which would eliminate the crosswalk with people driving down Reardon Road at above the speed limit. Having a tunnel would be a good thing. The parking lot, I've confirmed, would be for 30 cars. We're proposing an all-weather trail, and it appears that I copied in the wrong graphic, but there would be a playground. A playground is proposed right in this section with a covered picnic area. There would be no construction costs or ongoing costs to the POA for a minimum of 3 years. At one of the previous meetings, I was asked about the playground equipment, and I had indicated that we really hadn't gotten to that point because the project had not yet been approved, and so we hadn't spent a lot of time on developing a concept. But I was asked to get a little bit more specific, and so as I was talking about this actually with my wife, she said, well, the input you should receive is from kids. They're the end user. And so I was talking to Tommy, and Tommy has a family night coming up at BV Bar and Grill on August 11th between 4 and 7. And we're going to have a magician, a face painter, and a balloon artist will be present. So the thought process is we would get large boards with 2 or 3 different playground concepts, and have the kids give stickers to the kids and have them put a sticker on the playground equipment that they like the best. Have the kids vote for it. So that probably a better idea than having a 57-year-old decide what is the right playground equipment. Let's have a 5 and a 10-year-old decide, within reason, of course. So one of the concept was to go kind of a natural way, and so this is concept A, we're going to call it. This is a picture from the rail yard at Rogers, and you'll notice that they've used natural logs, which is inexpensive, kind of goes with the terrain and so forth, with the wooded terrain, and there's pipes that they can crawl through, little ladder things that they can climb on. So this is something that is currently being used and played upon at the rail yard. So here's one concept. And then the other one was we went through, and there's a lot of different companies out there that sell prefabricated playground equipment, and here's 3 different examples. and I kind of like this one. It's kind of big. It's got a lot of multiple slides in there and a lot of different things that you can climb on. I kind of thought this was neat. One of the other ones I didn't include in here is if you've been to Osage Park, their new playground equipment is very impressive. So the thought process would be to select 2 or 3 different concepts, have large storyboards, and have the kids decide. That's the idea. Any questions on that? I really didn't want to go into too much depth because the board has talked about this quite a bit. But I didn't want to squelch anybody from asking questions.
I guess I'll just ask the question on, I assume that the picture up there currently could be quite pricey. So are we assuming that this would be included in the improvement, or that the POA would have to come up with some of the funding?
This would, as I have indicated previously, this would not cost the POA anything.
Okay. So in order to get this on the table, I need a motion. Can I have a motion? It previously was on the table. Do we need to untable it? No, I just need a motion. Okay.
I'll do the motion. I authorize management to enter into an agreement with the Trailblazers for the installation of a parking lot, all-weather looping trail, playground equipment, and covered picnic area, with the understanding there will be no cost to the POA for at least 3 years.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jan Hagan seconds. Okay, now, we will be open for discussion, and as Tom indicated, we have talked about this for 3 months now, and we will adhere to Robert's Rules of Order, where everybody, each director gets to speak once before there is any reply, and then we will go around the table a second time if anybody chooses to make a second comment. So where should we start? Jan Hagan says JB will start.
Well, I will start because I do have to leave.
Understood.
In about 30 minutes. Jan has my proxy, so we've talked about this. We've gone through so many really good conversations about what could happen and what couldn't. I am very much in support of this simply because I think it's needed, and out of 525 people that wrote back, 64%, I believe that's correct, want this. The older folks that need a flat place to walk, the idea of a family outing, and the parking lot is very much needed, so I'm for it.
Okay, Mike?
I agree. I feel like it's only a benefit to the community. I know that there's some fears of public facilities somehow, finding their way to not being used by Bella Vistans or not primary user. I think that's going to be the opposite with this thing. I don't think it's going to be the solution for Lake Bella Vista's walking path going away. I think it's going to be a really awesome way to see a really incredible body of water with Little Sugar Creek, which sadly is not able to be appreciated enough. And I'm excited for the tunnel. I'm excited for more things for the west side to connect amenities, and there's a lot of opportunity here to enjoy this. I only see the upside on it.
Okay, Sandy will be next, and then I will go to our 2 virtual participants after Sandy talks.
In reading a lot of the comments that people indicated, it does look like a lot of the members would like to have a walking trail. I did notice a lot of them would like it to be walking only. I'm not sure that I understand why we can't just refurbish our golf cart trail in that area. I went out and walked it, and it could be resurfaced. I am totally against us licensing this valuable piece of property forever because, like I've indicated before, the population in Bella Vista is growing, and we don't have any more land for golf courses. I understand the professionals say how much it would cost to refurbish this, but they will also tell you it's a lot less than building a brand new golf course. I also believe that the things that the flood study indicated, the mitigation work that has to be done in Little Sugar, we're gonna end up paying for that anyway. If you've gone down and walked through that tunnel on 71, that has got to be fixed. There are still car or vehicles or equipment or whatever going through there. You can see the tracks in the mud. So it's being used. I talked to a friend, she's a bike rider. She said she rode through there. So it's still being used, and maybe it's something we should have closed off if it's a liability issue. I don't know. I don't know if we own that underneath, that path that goes underneath there, or if we need to contact the highway administration, because somebody needs to come look at that bridge also. There's some cracks. So it looks like there's some work that needs to be done, but I think we're doing the POA a real disservice if we license this property away.
Thank you, Sandy. Jerry Barron next.
Yeah, I would love to see it return to a golf course. However, I know the west side floods pretty extensive and it has a lot of damage. It's not going to be shored up by us anytime soon, so that kind of is going to throw it out. I would like it to be used for recreational purposes, and I would like some consideration to be given to the playground equipment for senior citizens too. Evidently, there's a pretty good group, because I've had several call me about it, that thought it would be helpful for those that needed exercise and to get out a different experience. You've answered, but I've asked a lot. Jan actually sent out some questions that answered a lot of my questions. And I think that the park would be the right answer right now.
Thank you, Jerry. Tia?
Yeah, I have to second a lot of what Jerry just said. I had a lot of concerns in the beginning, the reasons why these were tabled, but a lot of what my concerns were have been thoroughly discussed and talked about and concluded. I do like the way that the motion was proposed, stating that the playground equipment is part of it, and that's what we're asking management to do, is to go into an agreement with the understanding that that playground equipment is included. That was my biggest concern. I wanted members to have a great area, a great walking place. They're already using it. That chip and seal material is fantastic. I think we got a lot of members that are very, very much for this, but I also, like Jerry said, a lot of comments were made for senior citizen playground equipment, and I think that definitely needs to be looked at, whether it's part of this or phase 2 of something the POA needs to do. I think that's something we should discuss in the future, but as of right now, yes, I support this.
Thank you, Tia. Jan Sims?
Well, I object to the limited terminable license agreement that is in our packet today, because it does not cover everything that has come out today. Like the city of Bella Vista is not included in this agreement. And previously, the POA and the city of Bella Vista have been equal shares in the maintenance. This agreement does not list that it's going to be part of the Little Sugar agreement, and which does limit us to $35,000 in maintenance. The way this current agreement is written, there is no limit in the amount of maintenance the POA can spend. I also question about the word of and the ability of us being able to license the property, because the declarations and the bylaws do not specifically say that the property can be licensed. It says it can be, I'd have to look it up for sure. It can be leased, it can be operated, it can, there's 2 other things, but it does not say that we can license. The only thing that says that we can license is a policy that the board voted on a couple of years ago, saying that we can license the land. Now, while it doesn't say we can't license, it specifically says what we can do with the land, the real estate, the real property. So I think that this is potentially and contrary to our declarations and bylaws. Let me look at my notes here. One other aspect of the agreement is that if it should ever be terminated, this land must forever be open to the public. It can never go back to being members only. And that is something that we're agreeing to. Previously, in all these trails, we have, you know, the POA property that we have licensed has been through the woods. And now we are being asked to license a prime piece of real estate. And I think that it is not in the members' best interest that we license this property.
Thank you, Jan. Jackie?
I guess I was appreciative that we tabled this as a group because I think we received a lot of good information from further discussion. And every time we talk about it, something else comes up because I was unaware that we were talking about closing the tunnel. So if that's the case, then I don't understand that because I traveled through that tunnel as well. So I guess I would like a little understanding about the tunnel future. I didn't think that was part of this proposal. But I think there's a need for the flat trails, as we've talked about before. I think there's a need for benches around the flat trail. It is not safe, in my opinion, to access now. We're taking up parking lot of other businesses, or there's prohibited parking somewhere, and if you have to go through the tunnel, you have to go from Allen's, and if you're handicapped or have a stroller or elderly, it's not good access. And it's been vacant, not used for enough years. I think something needs to happen to it. I don't think that a golf course is in the future. It floods. Our experts have spoken. So I think that it is, I'm definitely for it. I think it's a good use for it. When I speak to members, if they understand the golf course is not in the future, they are for this. And I think that Tammy's work on our research has shown that the community is for it. So.
Thank you, Jackie. Jan Hagan?
When I decided to run for the board, a big part of my motivation was to help support relevant amenities for changing Bella Vista and to support the maintenance at a high level of the amenities that we currently have. And anything that I could do to help do that and bring that about and maintain a strong fiscal position for the POA, I hope that I could contribute a little bit. So when we came across the Birksdale West proposal, for me it seemed a no-brainer. I mean, here is something that is a relevant amenity that will serve not only a growing younger population, but quite frankly, old buzzards like me who can walk on a trail that doesn't go way up and down and could get some use out of. And it's on a piece of property that's currently not being used that we have to maintain anyway. And then it was going to be paid for in full, and then for 3 years been taken care of, just like any house that you buy or an RV or a car. Those things that pop up that need repair usually are in the first 2 or 3 years, and that was going to be covered. So it seemed like a no-brainer. But I understand that this is a big change in terms of how that property was used, and a lot of questions were raised. And I think, just like Jackie said, I think it was really good that we took the time to really investigate further and do our due diligence. After all, that's what we are charged to do. And I have to say, I think that we have done that due diligence. I think we have asked our members, we have asked experts, we've asked the golf community, we've asked legal questions, and I appreciate those who have asked those questions. I think it was totally appropriate to do so. And I'm glad, because all those questions help reinforce for me that this is a definite yes. This is something that will be very, very popular and a hit with our members. I fully support it.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, at this time, you have an opportunity in the same order to respond. You don't have to. JB?
I just want to add that special needs is another thing to look at. in a lot of our facilities around here, but especially this one. So let's get the special needs and the kids and the, whatever you said earlier.
Old buzzards.
Okay, I was gonna say something different and it wasn't that, so, okay. Thank you. I just think special needs is important.
Thank you. Mike?
You know, to some concerns about biking or walking only paths, I think if we go into a redesign phase of the path, I do think that there could be a separated zone between the two so they're not the same mergered lane. And you see this time and time again in many urban designs of how to separate them. I mean, it's basically just another stripe, you know, but at least it's some sort of barrier that can aid in the competition being slimmed on some of that. And I would jockey for it to be the full 11-foot path, the same as the Greenway has. I don't know how much they're willing to do the chip and seal and at what width, but the wider the better, just so we can share that traffic appropriately, because I do think there'll be a lot of people like former board member Mary Sinkus, who rides a recumbent bike and would be happy to do laps at her local park to get her exercise. So I think that that's something that I would like to see in consideration going forward.
Thank you, Mike. Sandy?
I would like to know your thoughts on Little Sugar if no mitigation work is done whatsoever. I fear that we're going to end up with the same mess that we have at Lake Bella Vista right now. If you've gone down there, you've seen where the earth has been washed out underneath the sidewalk. And if we don't start doing some of that work that is required, that was from the flood study, then Little Sugar is going to continue to grow wider and wider as it continues to flood. And we're going to end up with an inch of water in there, which people don't like. And it's going to continue to get wider. And if this beautiful sidewalk gets washed out years down the road, we will get to pay for it at that point. Because even though problems may arise within the first few years, this flooding could come at any time. I mean, it may be 5 years from now, it may be 10 years from now, and then we'll end up having to replace the whole thing. So I don't necessarily think that this is of no cost to us down the road. So the area does flood, yes. That's the whole argument against making it a golf course again.
Thank you, Sandy. Jerry? Barron?
Yeah, the course does flood. I think that if they build a all-weather surface out there, that they'll put the money into mitigating the loss. They're not going to do the whole creek, but I think in that area they might. It would be to their advantage to do it, because if 3 years from now, I think we'll have a flood way before then. So that's what's kind of the deciding factor. I think they will do it. I hope so. If they want to get more opportunities to lease more land, I think they better do it, but that's just my thoughts. So we'll see.
Thank you. Tia?
No further comments.
Thank you. Jen Sims?
So is it possible to add something into the contract that the Trailblazers will shore up the Little Sugar Creek bed on the Burksdale West side? Has that ever been discussed?
It has not been discussed.
Okay. Jackie?
I wasn't through. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. David, you've mentioned in the past, did I not think if golf got bigger and bigger, if we wouldn't get another golf course? And in reading the declarations and covenants, it's apparent that if we are to have another golf course, that Cooper has to build it and turn it over to the POA.
Doug?
Is that
True or
No, they wouldn't have to do that.
Farm.
Arc mode, they wouldn't have been involved in that, and the farm.
Dogwood
as
Golf
well.
Course, Jan.
The farm.
Yeah.
We did Dogwood, that
Okay.
land. We did that by ourselves.
Okay, well, that's
Okay.
good news.
Yes.
One other thing I might mention is that on the Greenway Trail, I have been told that the bikers are very rude and won't let the walkers by. So that, if we could have like two separate trails or a walking, a walking trail and a biking trail, I think that would be beneficial.
Thank you. Okay, Jackie.
The only additional comment is, Doug, thank you for drawing up this license agreement. And you answered my question individually to the group, but I think it would be good to be known that even though the city is not in this, that this is under the Little Sugar, so the expectation would be they would pay half of the maintenance, is how I understand this license agreement. Is that correct?
Correct. The amount that's, that the city is obligated to pay would cover
Right.
costs towards this as well.
Appreciate that clarification. That's all.
Jen Hagan?
Just like Jackie, I'd just like to commend the work by all the staff who helped us to get to a place where we felt that we had done all of the research and due diligence that we needed. Tammy, with her work in a short time frame to compile all the community response, what Doug has done, and of course Tom's leadership, I'm just very, very appreciative of the way everybody has stepped up so that we could approach this in an appropriate and professional manner. So I'm excited about it.
Okay. That being said, we've been around the table twice. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the proposal as read, made a motion, raise your hand, or signify by saying aye.
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 That's 7. Opposed? Fosdick and Sims. The motion is passed. The next item is up for the Gear Garden development cost, has to do with capital funding of unforeseen expenses.
So on page 32 of your board packet, and Tommy referenced this earlier today, so the original plan was to, in the operating budget, was to spend $9,653. As it turns out, we ended up spending $16,502, and that increase was driven by two main things. One was the security and the other one was the sewer. A capital project is over $10,000 and has a lifespan of exceeding 1 year. And so this definitely qualifies. Tommy gave us the update that we're actually over $8,000 in total revenue. So far, we're bringing 50% of that down to the bottom line. So we've already recouped 25% of the total cost of the $16,000. So I'm anticipating that we're going to recoup our entire investment by the middle to end of August, which would be outstanding. That's it. Really just wanted to appreciate everybody's contribution that went into making this happen.
Okay, first thing I need a motion.
I make a motion to grant ex post facto approval of the Gear Garden project for $16,502. Don't forget that $2.
And $2. Don't forget the $2 bill. Thank you, JB. Is there a second for that?
Yeah, I'll second it, David.
Jerry Barron does a second. Okay. Is there any further discussion? In that case, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the variance, signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sims and Fosdick. Opposed. That brings us to the end of our published agenda. Are there any items that anybody wants to bring up? Good. We'll get to the Rules and Regulations Committee meeting, the announcements. Rules and Regulations is on Monday, the 22nd, 26th.
26.
Today's the 22nd. 4 p.m. in the boardroom here at the Country Club. It's also available live stream, and anybody interested can attend. It is an open meeting. Recreation Joint Advisory Committee meeting is Monday, August 9th, 4 p.m., right here in the boardroom, open to the public and live stream. The Lakes Joint Advisory Committee meeting, Wednesday, August 11th, 2 PM, right here in the boardroom, same deal, open to the public and live stream. The Golf Joint Advisory Committee meeting is that same day, Wednesday 11th at 4 PM, so they always want the recreation people to get out of the way. Right here in the boardroom, same conditions. The next Board of Directors GM meeting is Thursday, August 12th, 2:30 PM here in the boardroom. This is a closed meeting. The Board of Directors working session, Tuesday, August 17th at 9 AM in the boardroom at the Country Club and via live stream. That is a date change. It is on a Tuesday rather than a Thursday. And the Board of Directors regular session, similar to this meeting where we do the voting, Thursday, August 26th, 6 PM, right here in the boardroom, open to the public and live stream. Thank you very much. That'll conclude our meeting.